The morning calm at Windsor Castle shattered when the unthinkable happened. The Queen Consort, as own son, was stopped by royal guards and ordered to have his belongings inspected. Gasps echoed through the marble halls as Tom Parker watched centuries of royal courtesy vanish before his eyes. But what no one knew, not Camilla, not even the king, was that Prince William himself had orchestrated the move. And the reason? It wasn't scandal. It was something far darker and far more dangerous than anyone dared imagine. If you love true royal drama mixed with deep emotion and hidden truth, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the stories that reveal what really happens behind palace walls. And if you think you know where this story is going, wait until you hear what Prince William did next. Let's dive in. The sun had barely risen over Windsor Castle when the first stirrings of unease began. The morning light spilled through the ancient stone archways, brushing against portraits that had watched centuries of secrets pass in silence. But today, the silence felt heavier, as though the castle itself knew something was about to happen. Tom Parker Bowles adjusted the strap of his leather messenger bag as he made his way down the long corridor, leading to his mother's private quarters. He had walked this path dozens of times, to share a new recipe, to catch up over tea, or simply to see how the Queen Consort was faring. But this morning felt off. The usual nods from staff were replaced by quick glances and lowered voices. Even the echo of his own footsteps seemed to carry tension. Then from the shadows near the gilded doorway, 2 royal guards stepped forward. Not the ceremonial soldiers tourists love to photograph. These men were from the elite protection unit. Their presence was silent, commanding, and unnervingly still. "Good morning, sir," said the taller guard, voice steady but firm. "We'll need to inspect your belongings before you proceed." Tom blinked. "I'm sorry. Inspect my belongings." He gave a small, disbelieving laugh, thinking it must be some misunderstanding. But the guards didn't laugh back. Their expression stayed professional, polite, yes, but unyielding. "New security protocols, sir," the second guard added. "Applies to all visitors to the private wing, no exceptions." Tom's brow furrowed. He looked around, half expecting someone to appear and explain the absurdity of what was happening. No exceptions? He was the Queen Consort's son, not a stranger. He had grown up around this world, and though he never sought its spotlight, he had always been treated with quiet respect. But something about the guard's stance told him this wasn't a request. Reluctantly, he followed them to a small checkpoint table set up near the marble column. A portable scanner hummed beside it. A laptop, some security devices, and a tray for personal items. It all looked strangely clinical, out of place amid the castle's centuries-old grandeur. Tom set his bag down. The sound echoed far too loudly in the quiet hall. Inside were only the ordinary things of his everyday life. A few cookbooks he was reviewing, a notepad filled with scribbled recipes, his laptop, phone, and pens. Nothing that should raise suspicion. Yet, as the guards began methodically going through his things, flipping through pages and scanning his devices, Tom felt something twist inside him. Not fear exactly, but humiliation. Each turn of a page, each glance exchanged between the guards, seemed to strip away another layer of dignity. He folded his arms, forcing calm into his voice. "You'll find nothing there, I assure you." The senior guard didn't look up. "Standard procedure, sir." The words hung in the air, cold and impersonal. Standard procedure. Tom could almost hear the staff whispering as they walked by, eyes darting toward him then quickly away. The embarrassment burned. This wasn't just protocol. It was a message. But what kind of message? And from whom? Minutes passed. The inspection ended as quietly as it began. The guards repacked his bag neatly and handed it back with a curt nod. No apology, no explanation, just the sterile efficiency of men following orders. "Thank you, sir. You may proceed." Tom hesitated, gripping the bag strap tight. His jaw clenched. Proceed? After that, he wanted to demand answers, to call his mother, to ask why her own son was being treated like an intruder in her home. But pride stopped him. The last thing he wanted was to make a scene that would end up whispered across the palace. So instead, he nodded stiffly and walked away. As he made his way toward his mother's sitting room, every step felt heavier. His mind raced with questions. Why now? Had something happened? Was he being singled out? Or was everyone under suspicion? And then, an even colder thought crept in. Did my mother know about this? The door to Camilla's suite opened before he could knock. The Queen Consort's private secretary greeted him with the usual calm professionalism, but Tom caught a flicker of surprise in her eyes, perhaps at his pale expression. Inside, his mother was seated by the window, letters spread out before her, a soft light falling across her pearls.
"Darling," she said warmly, "you look like you've seen a ghost. What on earth?" Tom cut her off. His voice was tight. "The guards searched me. My bag. Everything." For a moment, Camilla simply stared at him, her hand frozen midair. "What?" They said it was a new protocol. But it didn't feel routine, Mom. It felt targeted. Her expression shifted, shock giving way to controlled indignation. "That can't be right," she murmured, rising from her chair. "I'll speak to your stepfather. This must be some kind of mistake." But even as she spoke, something in her eyes wavered, a flicker of unease she couldn't hide. In her years at the palace, she'd learned that nothing happened by mistake. Everything, every change, every gesture, carried intent. Tom sank into the sofa, rubbing his temples. "They looked through my notebook, Mom. My notes, like I was some kind of spy." Camilla's voice softened. "You're not, and no one here should ever treat you like one." Yet, deep down, she knew what this meant. Someone high enough had ordered it. Someone powerful enough to question loyalty itself. As the fire crackled quietly in the corner, Camilla felt a chill that had nothing to do with the November wind outside. She thought of her husband's meetings with the Privy Council, of William's recent silence during family gatherings. A slow realization took hold, one she didn't want to voice. This wasn't random, and if her instinct were right, her stepson, the future king, had just drawn a line that would divide the royal household in ways unseen since the days of Diana. The inspection was only the beginning. What Tom didn't know was that miles away, Prince William sat alone in Kensington Palace, staring at a classified report that would force him to make an impossible choice, one that would test the limits of family, loyalty, and truth itself. Night had fallen over Kensington Palace, and the corridors were nearly empty, save for the muffled sound of a clock somewhere deep within the old walls. Inside his private study, Prince William sat alone, sleeves rolled up, his jaw clenched as he stared at a thick folder marked Confidential Security Breach Report. The document in front of him wasn't just another royal formality. It was a warning, a pattern of strange incidents. Each small, almost forgettable, had begun to form a picture too clear to ignore. Private family moments that somehow made their way into tabloids. Photographs taken inside supposedly restricted areas. Conversations repeated in papers word for word. William's pen tapped against the desk as his eyes moved line by line. Unauthorized images. Compromised communications. Pattern of leaks aligning with non-working family visits. Each detail deepened the pit in his stomach. He'd spent years guarding his family's privacy with quiet precision, especially after watching his mother's life play out under flashbulbs and headlines. He had promised himself and Catherine that he would never let that happen again. And now, it was happening again. Only this time, the threat wasn't coming from the outside. It was coming from within. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. His mind flashed through every possibility: disloyal staff, technical breaches, even cyber intrusions. But then one name kept resurfacing. Not from evidence, not from direct accusation, but from probability. Tom Parker Bowles, the Queen Consort's son. Polite, unassuming, a respected food writer with no apparent connection to royal politics. Yet his name appeared again and again, near dates and places where information had leaked. It could have been coincidence. But William knew better than to trust coincidences in palace life. For a moment, he simply stared out the window. Beyond the glass, the city of London glowed like a circuit board. Every light, Every shadow part of a network of power, secrecy, and expectation. How do you protect your family? He whispered under his breath. When the danger wears a familiar face? He thought of Catherine, her easy laughter, her trust in him, the way she assumed he could shoulder anything. He thought of his children, their world still innocent, still untouched by the cynicism of adults. And he thought of his father, King Charles, whose fragile balance between monarchy and modernity depended on unity within the family. Accusing Camilla's son without proof would set off a chain reaction that could fracture that balance forever. Yet doing nothing could endanger them all. The decision felt impossible. But leadership, William had learned, isn't about comfort. It's about carrying what others cannot. He pressed the intercom. Major Kent, I'll need my security briefing extended. Bring me the updated intelligence logs and restrict access to my office. Within minutes, his trusted aide entered, face serious. Sir, do you believe the breaches are internal? William didn't answer right away. His voice, when it came, was calm. I believe someone is being used. Maybe not deliberately, but the pattern's too precise. The major hesitated, reading the unspoken meaning in William's tone. And if that's someone's family? William's eyes met his. Then we proceed exactly as we would with anyone else. No exceptions. The words hung in the air, heavy with the kind of authority that carried both power and pain. For the next several days, William buried himself in work. Every piece of correspondence, every report from MI5, every log of who entered and exited royal residences, he examined them all. Slowly, a picture emerged. The leaks occurred after gatherings or private lunches where extended family were present. Each time details, however trivial, had found their way to the press within 48 hours. That was when he made his decision. Not to accuse. Not yet, but to watch, to test, to see what would happen under tighter control. He summoned his top security advisors, the same men who protected the royal family during the most turbulent years of the 21st century. The meeting was brief, cold, and precise. I want full inspection protocols reinstated for private wings, William said, his tone leaving no room for debate. No exceptions, not for cousins, not for friends, not for anyone. The head of security frowned. Including the Queen Consort's family, sir? William paused, eyes steady. Especially them. A silence followed, not of defiance, but of understanding. Every man in that room knew what this meant. It wasn't about distrust. It was about control. The kind a future king must sometimes assert, even at the cost of being misunderstood. By the following week, Windsor Castle had changed. Invisible to the public eye, new scanners, access logs, and encrypted systems had been installed. Guards briefed. Checkpoints reinforced. Everything that entered the private quarters, from floor deliveries to family luggage, was quietly inspected. William watched it all from afar, knowing exactly how it would look when the first inspection happened. And he braced himself, because he knew whose belongings would be checked first. 2 days later, he received the report. The guards had carried out their orders at precisely 10:42 a.m. Target, Mr. Tom Parker Bowles. Result, inspection completed. No contraband. No anomalies detected. Subject appeared agitated. William stared at the final line for a long time. He could picture it all, Tom's confusion, his humiliation, his mother's inevitable fury. He didn't feel triumph, only the dull ache of inevitability. Still, he needed to know whether the leaks would stop. If they didn't, then the problem was bigger than any one man. He closed the file and leaned back in his chair, exhaustion visible in every line of his face. For a brief moment, his eyes flicked to a framed photo on the desk, Catherine and the children laughing at Hall. That was his reason, his anchor. In that quiet moment, a whisper escaped his lips. Forgive me, Tom, and you too, Camilla, but I have to be sure. The candle flickered beside him, casting his reflection onto the dark glass of the window. A man caught between love and duty, between family and the crown. And as he turned off the light, the palace outside seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the storm that would inevitably follow. But what William couldn't yet see was that his decision had already set events in motion beyond his control. Somewhere in London, a message was being typed. one that would reach Tom Parker Bowles and turn this quiet investigation into something far more dangerous than anyone in the royal family had anticipated. The days following the inspection felt like walking through fog, thick, uncertain, full of whispers that vanished when Tom entered the room. At first, he tried to shake it off. He told himself it was a misunderstanding, a mix-up that would soon be explained away. But the silence from the palace only deepened his unease. No phone call from his stepfather, no apology from security, not even a quiet message from William. Nothing. Then came the message. It appeared on his phone late one evening while he was working in his London flat. A simple text from an unknown number. "I know why you were searched. Meet me. I can explain everything." Tom stared at the screen, his pulse quickening. The message mentioned the guards, the time, even the items they'd inspected. Things no one outside the royal walls could possibly know. He read it again and again, the words burning into his mind. Who would know that kind of detail? And why would they contact him? For nearly an hour, he paced the small kitchen, debating. Common sense told him to ignore it, but curiosity and a gnawing need for answers got the better of him. The next afternoon, he arrived at a small cafe tucked away in South Kensington, the kind of place where conversations disappeared on the hum of background chatter. He chose a corner seat with a clear view of the entrance, heart pounding as he waited. When the door opened, a woman stepped inside. Early 40s, neat dark hair, business suit, the look of someone who noticed everything but said very little. She approached his table calmly. "Mr. Parker Bowles?" she asked, extending a hand. "You can call me Sarah." He nodded cautiously. "And you can tell me who you really are." A faint smile. "Let's say I work with people who keep your family safe. You've been caught in something far bigger than you realize." Tom leaned back, eyes narrowing. "If this is about the inspection." "It's because of the inspection," she interrupted quietly, "and because someone's been using you without your knowledge." Her words landed like a blow. "Using me? For what?" Sarah slid a small tablet across the table and turned the screen toward him. Images filled the display, blurry, long-lens shots of Tom entering royal residences, dining in small restaurants, chatting on his phone. In every picture, there was another figure lurking nearby. The same man. Tom's chest tightened. "Marcus." Sarah nodded. "Yes, Marcus Hale. Freelance photographer. You've worked together, correct?" He swallowed. "On food features. Restaurant spreads. He's a colleague." "Not exactly," she said softly. "Marcus has been under investigation for months. He's sold stories to tabloid before, but recently his movements matched those of someone working for a foreign intelligence network. Every time you visited your mother, Marcus was within range. Every time a private royal detail leaked, he'd file photographs, sometimes of you, sometimes of nothing at all. But the timing matched too perfectly to ignore." Tom felt the color drain from his face. "You're saying I was, what? A target?" "Not just a target," Sarah replied. "A doorway." Her voice softened, the professional calm of someone used to delivering bad news. "He was likely monitoring your devices, recording your calls, possibly even planting listening tech in items you carried into the castle. You were the perfect cover, family trusted unsearched until recently." The room seemed to tilt. Tom gripped his coffee cup, knuckles white. "My God!" For a long moment, neither spoke. The weight of the revelation pressed between them like a stone. Finally, Sarah continued, "Prince William ordered the inspection because his analysts noticed the pattern. He didn't want to believe it, but he couldn't ignore it either. You were never the suspect, Mr. Parker Bowles. You were the key." Tom looked up sharply. "So all of this, the humiliation, the whispers, was part of his plan?" "Part of his duty," she corrected gently. "He had to confirm whether the breach was internal or external. That inspection wasn't meant to shame you. It was meant to protect the family, including you. It should have brought relief, but it didn't." Tom's voice cracked. "He could have told me. One word. That's all it would have taken." Sarah's eyes softened. If he had, Marcus would have known, and the entire operation would have collapsed. The truth hit hard. Tom realized that while he'd been walking around feeling betrayed, William had been silently protecting him. and everyone else. Sarah gathered her tablet and stood. Marcus is being monitored. We'll need your full cooperation to close this. Every message, every call, every time he met you, we need to know it all. Tom nodded numbly, his mind still spinning. Of course. As she left, the door chimed softly, leaving Tom alone with the aftershock of truth. He sat there long after his coffee went cold, staring out at the London traffic. He'd been angry for days, furious, even, but now that anger had nowhere to go. It dissolved into something heavier, guilt. He thought of his mother, how she defended him instantly. He thought of William, how the prince had looked so composed the last time they'd spoken, carrying something behind his eyes that Tom hadn't recognized at the time. Fear. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. Every creak of the flat made him flinch. He kept thinking about Marcus, about the dinners they'd shared, the stories they'd swapped, the jokes. All of it suddenly tainted. He scrolled through their old messages, looking for clues, for something he might have missed. There was nothing overt, just everyday chatter. But in retrospect, it all looked different. Questions about his schedule, comments about his fascinating family, casual curiosity that now felt predatory. Sometime near midnight, his phone buzzed again. A new text. Unknown number. You shouldn't have met her. Now they'll come for both of us. Tom's heart thudded so hard he almost dropped the phone. He checked the sender. Blocked. Gone. He didn't sleep at all after that. By morning, news reached William's desk. MI5 had moved in. Marcus had been arrested. Multiple devices seized. Encrypted drives, long-range mics, hidden cameras disguised as pens and USBs. But the real shock came from the analysis. The data linked Marcus to a foreign intelligence operation, a network built to gather subtle, seemingly harmless information about high-ranking British figures. Their routines, their habits, their vulnerabilities. It wasn't about tabloids anymore. It was about power, influence, and it had reached the gates of the monarchy. When William heard it, he went completely still. All the sleepless nights, the secrecy, the guilt, all justified, yet all hollow. He had been right to suspect. But the victory felt like a wound. Somewhere out there, the monarchy had been a target, and his family had been used as bait. He stared out over the palace gardens, the winter air misting the window pane. Beneath the duty, the composure, the royal calm, one thought pressed hard in his chest. What if I hadn't acted? He turned back to his desk, eyes dark with resolve. There was one more conversation that needed to happen, one that could either mend a family or break it forever. And so, the next morning, Prince William made his way to Windsor Castle. Not as an heir, not as an investigator, but as a man who owed another an explanation. What he said behind those doors would shock Tom Parker Bowles and change the family forever. 2 days after Marcus's arrest, a light drizzle fell over Windsor Castle, the kind of gray morning that made even its golden stones seem subdued. Inside, the air was heavy with unspoken tension. Prince William had arrived early unannounced, asking for a private meeting with Tom Parker Bowles. No aides, no security, just the two of them. When Tom entered the small drawing room, he stopped in the doorway, unsure whether to feel grateful, angry, or simply exhausted. William stood by the fireplace, hands clasped behind his back, looking less like a prince and more like a man who hadn't slept in days. "Tom," he said quietly, "thank you for coming." Tom gave a faint, brittle laugh. "I wasn't sure I had a choice, to be honest." "You always do," William replied softly, "and I owe you an explanation." He gestured toward a chair. Tom hesitated, then sat. The two men faced each other. One the future king, the other the son of a woman who had married into that destiny. For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of rain against a window filled the silence. Then William began. "I ordered that inspection," he said plainly. "Every detail of it." Tom's jaw tightened. "I assumed as much." William nodded. "But not because I thought you were guilty of anything. I thought you were being used, and I needed proof." He reached into his coat and placed a thin folder on the table between them. "The man you knew as Marcus wasn't just a photographer. He was working with a foreign intelligence network. You were their way in. Tom blinked. Their way in? They tracked your visits, your communications, William said. They used your proximity to royal residences to collect data, movements, routines, small details that, when put together, could compromise security. We didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was undeniable. Tom sat back slowly, eyes unfocused. So I wasn't the threat, I was the route. Yes, William said, and I'm sorry you had to find out the way you did. Tom's throat tightened. Do you have any idea what it felt like? Being treated like a criminal in my own mother's home? The looks, the whispers. I do, William said quietly, because I ordered it, and I hated every second of it. He leaned forward, voice low but steady. Tom, I didn't do it to humiliate you. I did it because I couldn't risk losing what we've all fought so hard to protect. Not just a monarchy, but our family. My children, your mother, even you. The weight of his sincerity filled the room. For a long while, Tom said nothing. He looked down at his hands that had written recipes and reviews, never realizing they'd been shadowed by espionage. Finally, he exhaled. So what happens now? William hesitated before answering. Marcus has been arrested. The network's being dismantled. Intelligence agencies are still assessing how much information was compromised. You'll likely need to cooperate further, but officially, you've done nothing wrong. Tom nodded slowly, absorbing it. And my mother? Does she know? I spoke to her this morning, William said. She knows everything. She's shaken but relieved. She understands why it had to be done. Tom gave a small, humorless smile. That's one word for it. William studied him for a moment. You have every right to be angry. I'd be furious in your place. But I also need you to know you handled yourself with integrity. Even unknowingly, you protected us. You never leaked anything of consequence. Your discretion, your lack of interest in palace gossip, it all helped. For the first time, Tom's eyes flicked upward, meeting William's. So I wasn't as much of a fool as I thought. Not at all, William said with a faint smile. In fact, you were the reason we caught them. The tension in the room softened slightly. Not gone, but no longer unbearable. After a pause, Tom stood and walked to the window. The rain had lightened, the sun just beginning to push through the clouds. You know, he said quietly, I spent years avoiding the chaos of royal life, and yet somehow it still found me. William gave a small chuckle. It has a way of doing that. The mood shifted. Tom turned, the storm in his expression easing into something closer to understanding. You did what you had to do. I can see that now. I just wish you hadn't had to do it to me. William rose and extended his hand. Believe me, Tom, I wish that too. Their handshake was firm but heavy with shared exhaustion. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. 3 months later, a rare and private gathering took place at Sandringham House. King Charles had invited not just the working royals, but extended family, including Tom. It wasn't a formal event. There were no uniforms, no photographers, just a quiet reunion meant to heal what had nearly broken. The atmosphere at first was cautious. Camilla sat close to her son, protective as ever, while William and Catherine arrived together, offering polite smiles. But as the hours passed, the tension began to fade. Charles spoke first, his tone warm but weary. We've all been through rather a storm, haven't we? He said, a touch of wry humor in his voice. And yet, here we are together. He turned to William. You did what was necessary, my boy. Painful as it was the right call. Then to Tom. And you, my dear fellow, you've shown dignity through circumstances no one should have to endure. Camilla's eyes glistened. She took her son's hand and gave it a reassuring squeeze. We've learned something vital, haven't we? She said softly. That family trust must be guarded as carefully as royal jewels. That line drew faint laughter, real, human laughter that eased what tension remained. William then spoke, explaining how the intelligence operation had been dismantled, how several public figures had also been targeted, and how lessons learned from the ordeal would reshape royal security. From now on, he said, We communicate openly. No more silent walls between family and protocol. Tom nodded, appreciating the words, but more than that, appreciating the tone. For the first time in months, there was warmth in William's eyes. The weight had lifted, replaced by something deeper, respect. Later that evening, as tea was served and the family began sharing lighter stories, Tom and William stepped outside for a walk in the gardens. The rain had cleared completely, leaving the air crisp and clean. They walked in silence for a while before Tom spoke. "You know, for a man who once made me feel like a suspect, you're not half bad at being a brother-in-law." William smiled. "And for a man who nearly gave my security team a nervous breakdown, you're not bad company either." They both laughed, not the hollow laughter of diplomacy, but something genuine, almost relieving. As they reached the garden's edge, William stopped and looked across the open field. "I've made peace with a lot of hard choices," he said quietly. "But this will stay with me, because it reminded me that even when you lead with duty, you can't forget compassion." Tom nodded. "And even when you're hurt, sometimes the person hurting you is trying to protect you." The two men shared a long, understanding look, one of those rare royal moments no camera would ever see. When they turned back toward the house, the windows of Sandringham glowed warmly in the fading light. Inside, their families waited, safe, whole, and perhaps stronger than before. What began as humiliation had become revelation, and through courage, honesty, and forgiveness, the royal family had not only survived a threat, they had rediscovered what truly bound them together. Not the crown, but trust.